Hey everybody, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video we're going to talk about the SteelSeries Arctis GameBuds. Now these are $160 and they're available in a few different versions. The Xbox version is available in black only, and if you buy the PlayStation version you have the choice of getting black or white. Now the Xbox version does work on PlayStation 5 as well. There's a little switch on the transmitter, so the only reason why I think you'd consider the PlayStation version is if you wanted to have the white colorway. Otherwise you can pretty much pick any model you want. Now this video is going to be really long and in depth, and I do have chapters below to help save you time if you only care about a particular area, because some people want to get as much information as they can, and I want to respect that. Now, I delayed this review for a while. I've had these for over 2 months now, I think close to 3 months now, and I read how some people were having a few issues with it. Mine never really had issues. I'll get into that in a moment, but I do want to address one of them. Some people were complaining about low volume on PlayStation. They fixed that with firmware version 1.50, which is what this review is based off of, and that does significantly boost the volume on PS5. Now, I'm reviewing the Xbox version, which, as I said, does also work on PS5, and my Xbox version works absolutely perfectly on PlayStation 5, and I did the firmware update. So that volume issue basically fixes the only real complaint I think I saw with console use. Mine have been perfect, like no joke, and I didn't build this channel off of the goal of doing as many subs or views as I can get. I want this channel to be a trustworthy source, so all I can do is ever just share my experience, and I'm really pleased that my particular unit works great. I'm not guaranteeing that yours is going to be perfect. With any electronics, some people have more issues than not. Maybe you have a lot of wireless interference. I can't replicate that. I can only truthfully say how mine worked. Now, I did the firmware update, and 1.50 has just been solid. I'm going to get into all the good things I like about it, but I did want to address why I delayed this review. As far as basic specs go, the GameBuds have dual connectivity options, one being 2.4 gigahertz with the included transmitter, and the other being Bluetooth 5.3. Now, Bluetooth 5.3 is great from a power efficiency standpoint, but the codec support is limited to SBC only. Now, obviously, we all prefer to have more codec support. I would have preferred to at least have AAC so the Apple users can get a little bit higher quality sound, or at least if you're on Android, have aptX HD, or LDAC. And if they did any of that, I think the pricing would have gone up, especially when you get into Qualcomm licensing. It would have increased the cost. Now, I don't think this is going to be, I wouldn't purchase these exclusively to be a Bluetooth only earbud without the use of all the other things it can do, like for gaming and console support. It'll work, but SBC is the lowest quality codec from a clarity standpoint and bitrate. The earbuds use a 6mm single dynamic driver, which I know won't stack up on paper against some hybrid IEMs in a similar price range, but these are wireless and have a lot more specs, so it's not really apples to apples. They're also rated for IP55, which is not intended for like full submersion, so don't go swimming with these, but if you go out for a jog and it starts raining, they'll still work absolutely fine. They also feature something called WearSense technology, which uses infrared, so when you put them in your ear, it knows it's in your ear, and when you take them out, it will automatically pause your content. You can disable this feature in the SteelSeries software if you don't want it to do that, especially if you listen to one earbud at a time and you don't want to have an interruption. So it's cool that you can change it, but it's a nice feature to have. Of course, you get a few accessories in the box, one of them being a short USB A to C cable, that's for charging purposes, and then you have a USB A to C extension, and this is because it's designed to support the transmitter. Now, if you have a USB Type A only port, then you would use this to plug into it, which means it's going to hang and kind of look like that. This is how you have to use it on Xbox. So you put the switch in Xbox mode, plug it in, and now this is hanging off the console, or if it's behind the console, that allows you to kind of rest it on top or next to it. I personally use a USB A to C adapter like this because I think it just looks so much better, and I just plug it into here, plug it in on the front of the console, and I'm good to go. So you can always get something like this. I'll have a link in the description below if you want to find what this is as an example to know what to shop for. And then it also comes with a few different ear tips in the box. It only comes with 3 pairs, a small, medium, large. So at least it gives you something to work with. You may not get the perfect fit, so you might want to experiment with tips. But aside from all that, you of course get the case with the buds and the transmitter. The case is kind of cool. It says GLHF on the inside of the lid, which stands for good luck, have fun. Good old gamer, positive vibes. And then what's really cool is, as compact as this case is, the transmitter fits inside, and that's really nice for travel because it's just one less thing to worry about losing. Now, on the note of the case and the buds are incredibly light, like just over 5 grams light, which is nuts. and the battery life is still super impressive. So you get 40-hour battery life combined between the case and the buds. The buds themselves last for 10 hours on their own on a single charge. The case gives you an additional 30, and a 15-minute charge gets you another 3 hours of gaming time. So pretty impressive battery life, especially when you look at the size of the earbuds themselves. It's not like they're just making them gigantic to put a big battery in it. So part of that comes from that efficiency codec with the Bluetooth 5.3 as well. Comfort is a super important thing with anything, but especially with things that go in your ears. And there are a few things to consider. One is the ear tip size, and the other one is the bore size, which is the plastic part or metal part, depending on what product you're looking at, that goes inside the ear tip. These are crazy small, like one of the smallest bores I've ever seen, or nozzles, I should say, coming out of this. It's 4.6 millimeters at the thickest point, which a lot of IEMs I review are 5.5 to about 6.3 millimeters. That's a massive difference. And what that means is if you have a smaller ear, or it's for a younger child, and you go with the smaller tips, they should still be able to put that in their ear without too much hard pressure behind the tip, creating discomfort. The other thing I like is the shape of these. There's no weird bulbous things sticking out. There's no hard edges, because anytime you get ones that have more of a wing on the end, if that doesn't line up with the cartilage of your ear or the pinna, it's creating unnecessary discomfort. Now, I want to talk about tips and comfort. I mentioned the tip size variants before. Tips are the most important thing for IEMs or earbuds because of two reasons. One is the comfort, the other is to create a seal. If you don't have a seal, these are designed to have a seal to sound the way they do. And if it's leaky, all of your bass response is gone. It sounds like crap. It won't be that loud. You lose a lot of issues. Not everyone has the exact same ear size opening from left to right. Obviously, I would start with the medium tips unless you know what ear size you are, and then see if there's a seal or not. Try to play around with your ear tip sizes left and right individually as well. My ears are not symmetrical perfectly, and sometimes I have to go with a different tip size on one ear to create a good seal. These still create a great seal with the silicone tips. Now, normally I have to switch to another tip called the Dunu SNS tips, kind of a square edge tip, and that's kind of like a cheat for IEMs that don't fit my ears well. These do, and they're really, really comfortable. And if you're ever trying to get a good seal, you can always pull up on your ear a little bit and kind of push them in, and that'll get them seated even tighter. This is such an important thing to get down, because if you find that these are lacking bass or something sounds really off, it might not be the IEM or earbud itself, it might actually be your seal. Now, on the note of your ear shape, I mentioned that this has like a flat, clean design, right? Nothing sticking out. This part of your ear is called the crust helix. It's like the center of your pinna, this little cartilage that kind of separates the both sides of your ear, and it sticks out a little bit past your ear canal. The only comfort issue I had with these, which is my biggest comfort issue with most IEMs and earbuds, not specific to the GameBuds, is I have just a tiny bit of pressure there. These are still crazy comfortable. I just want to point out where I felt the pressure, if any. Otherwise, they are very lightweight and a very comfortable earbud to wear. Now, if you have glasses or you live in a warm or humid or both environment, these are fantastic, because now you don't have an earmuff on your head, which often a lot of brands use leatherette pads. These don't have that issue because your ear can still breathe. Also, if you wear a hat or if you wear glasses and you don't like certain headphones or headsets putting pressure on your ears, a lot of people are more sensitive to that sensation than others, and it creates headaches, things like that. Well, now you can get something like this, an earbud, and game for a much longer period of time without the same discomfort issues. So once you have them in, you need to start connecting it, right? And to actually use it. And there are a few ways to set this up. Now, I mentioned it uses a transmitter. Now, if you're using this transmitter, this is 2.4 gigahertz. The range, or I like to call it the toilet test, I got about 28 feet before it started clipping out. And that was on the earbud that was further from the transmitter. So if I go like diagonally away, the left one was coming further because the transmitter was kind of like in this direction. So 28 feet is about the cutoff point of the shortest range I could get. On Bluetooth, I was able to get over 60 feet. I put my phone on my desk, I walked down the hall in my house, and it wasn't cutting out until it was over 60 feet away, which is pretty awesome. So range is pretty good. Latency is another thing to consider. Now, obviously with Bluetooth, and especially using SBC codec only, there is going to be a little bit of latency there. So if you're using this for competitive gaming, and Bluetooth specifically, you are going to have a little bit of latency there, and I just want to point that out. That's just something to consider. On 2.4, the latency is minimal. It's not as good as a wired setup or some headsets I've used when I'm plugged directly into a transmitter. One of the tests I do now, I used to always do like the visual test where it's the red dot on YouTube bouncing, and at the same time it bounced off the plank, it would make like a knock sound. And you try to, see if that lines up with what you're expecting to hear. This is so good that it seems like it's perfectly in sync with that. So the next test I did was on my Elgato Wavelink, I do real-time microphone monitoring, and you can choose what your output channel is. There's always a tiny, tiny lag with that, so it's not perfectly real-time if you're not using the native output. When I use a wired headphone, that's the closest I get to real-time through the computer's DAC output. So I switched to these, and there was a slight extra delay. I could still hear myself and use it for microphone monitoring, but that's where I can actually hear a tiny difference. It wasn't enough to make it feel like I was getting screwed on an FPS game because I couldn't keep up with the audio cues. You're not talking even half a second behind. You're still talking tenths of a second at most compared to anything else. It's usually just milliseconds, about 50 to 60 milliseconds. So pretty minimal. But I wanted to call that out because I know a lot of people are going to be concerned with latency. Now this has Bluetooth and 2.4, but it's not simultaneous where you can't listen to Bluetooth and 2.4 at the same time. I didn't expect that, and that's totally fine, but I do want to address that. Now, what's cool is it does connect to both. It does like a quick switch. And what I mean by that is if I'm plugging this transmitter into my computer, I can use SteelSeries Engine to modify the settings of the earbuds. I can even listen to my computer with 2.4. At the same time, my phone can be connected with Bluetooth, and I can use the SteelSeries mobile app to make changes to my earbuds as well. So both the transmitter and your Bluetooth device can talk to these simultaneously and make changes to your sounds. You can choose which one you listen to. The other way to do it is if you triple tap the earbud, you'll get a voice command that says 2.4 mode or Bluetooth mode. That way you know. So if you ever connect this and you're like, why can't I hear anything? Maybe you accidentally switched it, just triple tap and you're good to go. So about 2 years ago, GN, a parent company of Jabra, purchased SteelSeries to kind of increase their product portfolio. So I expect and hope that some of that product knowledge and technical background from the Jabra lineup translated into the SteelSeries Arctis GameBuds. And I think it did because their microphone tech was always pretty good, in addition to their sound quality, but that is such a critical thing to get right for a gaming headset. A lot of people want to know what you're saying, and earbuds, naturally, I was really concerned with their performance. And this is what my voice sounds like on the GameBuds using the 2.4 connection. I think the audio has moments where it sounds pretty good, and then moments where you can hear more processing, and the sound isn't always as consistent. This is still a little bit better than I expected, and the sensitivity is better than I expected as well, because if you talk quietly, it boosts it and picks it up enough. So if you're playing at night, you're good. And then if you shout, it still doesn't clip. It has like a little bit of a gain control or clamp on overall volume. So it should suit a variety of voices and how loud you speak. Sound quality is not great, but it's certainly usable. You can use it for chat, no problem, but obviously don't use something like this if you're planning on doing a lot of streaming. And this is what my voice sounds like when connected to my iPhone. Again, no changes in post-production, but this is what the Bluetooth audio performance sounds like. So this is more of what people will hear if you're on a call or doing any kind of chat through Discord, through the mobile app on your phone. Now, features, specs, comfort, connectivity, all that stuff is great, but at the end of the day, the sound quality could make or break any audio product. So I wanted to start with sound quality from an objective standpoint first, which means it's taken from measurements. It takes my opinion out of it. It's how my equipment measures it. Now, I'm not using a ear pinna for this measurement. I use something called an IEC 711 coupler clone connected to an Elgato Wavelink without any audio filters put in place. I do my frequency response measurements, and that's how I compare against IEMs. With headphones and headsets, it's different, but that's the equipment I use for IEM measurements. Now, this measurement that you see now is with the default sound profile. This is how they come out of the box. If you're not familiar with what this is, the gray dotted line is the Harman curve for IEMs. This isn't to say that everything is supposed to sound this way. This is just a general reference of traditional tuning. Now, the left side being higher means there's more bass. The middle of the chart is your mid-range, and the higher or lower affects things like vocals, instruments, some important audio details. And as you move to the right, you have higher frequencies, so upper mid-range, treble, etc. Now, the GameBuds, Out of the box, they have sub-bass roll-off. They don't go too deep, and the roll-off starts at 80 hertz. It kind of carries into the low mid-range. You can see it's lifted even like between 200 and 500 hertz. Then it's scooped in the upper mid-range, and this makes things sound kind of veiled. So it sounds warm, it sounds a little bit bloated and thick, and it doesn't come across as overly detailed or highly resolving. The issue is this peak that I get at 8,000 hertz. Now I want to explain this 8,000 hertz peak or 8 kilohertz peak because some of this is exaggerated by my measuring equipment. Measurement equipment or any audio product, there's typically a resonance somewhere. And on an IEC 711 coupler clone, that resonance happens at 8,000 hertz. It's actually how IEMs are measured in charts. So when I compare it to something like the Truth Ear Hexa, you're going to see a peak at 8,000 hertz as well. When I align it, the insertion depth, because ear canal depth actually changes frequency response a little bit, this peak is exaggerated because that's the resonance of my coupler. Now, regardless of all that, there is still a peak here even outside of the coupler, especially when you have a darker upper mid-range, low treble. Leading to that point, things can sound kind of dark, and then all of a sudden you hear a really sharp, I don't want to say like a stabbing treble, but it's noticeably brighter and sharper on the GameBuds in their default sound profile. Upper treble is fine and didn't have any real issues there. You have a little peak here at 15,000 hertz, but it wasn't like too bad. I do tame it a little bit with custom EQ, but I'll get into that in a moment. Now, if you're familiar with my SwigLink website, I have a link in the description below. You can click the plus sign here at the bottom. And now if you click the plus on ANC, this is what enabling active noise cancellation does to the earbuds, because these do have ANC, which we'll talk about that performance soon. It doesn't really affect the sound quality, which is great. I've had a lot of products where enabling or disabling active noise cancellation makes a huge difference on sound quality, and I'm really happy that there's not much of a change here, which means you can use the same EQ profile regardless if ANC is on or off. Now, this sound signature to me isn't fantastic, and personally, I would have preferred more tuning from SteelSeries prior to release in the flat EQ. I think it sounds a tad bit veiled. It's a little bit dark and thick sounding, and then that treble boost or spike isn't the most pleasing sound signature for a wide variety of content. Thankfully, with the Arctis GameBuds, you can do parametric EQ, which is a full, in this case, they give you 10 different points you can adjust. I don't want to say 10 band, but you have 10 points of adjustment. It allows you to pick any frequency you want to change and how aggressively you want to change, whether how wide you affect frequencies around it or how aggressively you lift or decrease it. So, of course, I made my own EQ profile, which I'll share in a moment. But again, if we click this plus sign down here and you enable my EQ, I'm going to change the color to make it brighter. So the yellow line is after my EQ change is done. And you can see I lifted the sub bass a little bit. I didn't want to push the sub bass too much because I didn't want to create distortion if you like listening to it at louder volumes. I also reduced the mid-range, the low mids, upper bass bloat that I got. And I greatly lifted, in my case, greatly in my head, lifted the more of the presence region, the whole upper mid-range area leading into the low treble. And I also tamed the treble spike. So this doesn't paint the full picture because how charts align on this visualization can kind of be misleading. But the difference is like profound. You know, they sound much more detailed without having that same treble spike. And the bass is still really impactful as well. I'm really happy with the results of this EQ. Now, on the note of EQ, there are two ways you can adjust the sound. These, of course, support SteelSeries Sonar because Sonar is universal. If you are only using this on PC, I do have a link in the description below to import this EQ setting into your PC Sonar instance, and that will apply the same changes. Now, that only affects Sonar on that one PC you import it to. These do have the ability to save onboard parametric EQ to them, just like the other Nova 5 that I reviewed in the past, which was awesome. So if you are playing on console or you want to apply this setting for your Bluetooth, you can type these values in manually. So with that being said, here's my EQ changes and what I did. You can see that I'm kind of shaping the general sound signature from low to high. Feel free to tweak this as you want. If you find that it's still too bright, there are some cases where I sometimes wish I had a little bit less treble, then reduce some of those upper frequencies that are wider to tame that treble. Conversely, if you find that there's too much bass or not enough, you can shape that too. This will give you a good starting point, and what's really cool about these is you can save the profile for Bluetooth and the 2.4 mode separately. So you can have one that's better suited for gaming or one for music, or just use these for both. I did this EQ because I wanted one setting to just kind of set and forget. It's great for FPS gaming, music, and movies, and I also love it for Bluetooth on my music. Now, in addition to all those settings, SteelSeries gives you a huge library of presets, and so play with it. I'm not saying that my EQ is perfect and you shouldn't even consider any of the others, because they can be quite fun to play with, and you can choose all of those on the mobile app or your PC. So if you just plug these into your PlayStation, for example, or an Xbox, while your phone's connected to them with Bluetooth, you can browse the huge library of game presets, pick your favorite, give that a shot and see what you think. Now, if you do your custom EQ settings like what I just provided and you save it to the earbuds on your PC, when you connect your phone to it, you will see that as the custom or like your own audio settings in the dropdown. So you can't save like 10 different custom EQs to it on your PC and then see all 10 on your mobile device. The mobile device is going to show whichever custom one is saved to it. It's pretty awesome either way, honestly, because you usually don't see all that. So I like that it has onboard memory for EQ. Getting into subjective sound quality and my own opinion out of it, a lot of this is going to be based off of my custom EQ because I wanted to kind of extract what the potential of them were. But out of the box, I mentioned this on the objective side, it's warm, it's a little bit thick sounding, and it doesn't sound as clear or resolving compared to other well-tuned products. You know, we compare it to something like a well-tuned Nova Pro Wireless or the Odyssey Maxwell. Once you make some of these changes, they can sound more detailed. The sub bass on these rolling off is a byproduct of, I think, in my opinion, using a single 6mm dynamic driver for everything and having a really small nozzle. The small nozzles, basically what goes in your ear, is amazing for comfort, but a lot of these IEMs that have big bass often have big nozzles. It's an acoustic thing. So I think some of these, the byproduct of having this kind of comfort is you're trading off the sub bass performance a little bit. Now the resolution and overall clarity, especially with EQ, is good. It's not like the best you can possibly get out there, but considering it's an earbud for under 200, I'm pretty impressed by it. It's certainly better than some other gaming headsets in this price range. You know, some of the stuff from Razer, some of the more affordable headsets from Corsair stand out as not being as clear sounding to me. And I think this is actually pretty close to the technical capability of something like a Nova 7. So if you like the Nova 7 headsets, but you wanted it in an earbud form factor, especially once EQ has been applied to both, you get a surprising amount of clarity similarities between the two. Now, even though on the measurement side, they don't look like they have as much sub bass, they still have a lot of bass and it can sound really impactful. The seal is going to make the biggest difference. So again, make sure you have the right tip size. And if you do the custom EQ where I lifted it a little bit, they still get really loud without distortion. So if volume is an issue for you, one, obviously the first time you connect an earbud to a device, make sure your volume's set okay before you start playing stuff. Some computers will just start at maximum volume. You don't want to damage your hearing. But the power handling is quite high. I never got close to max volume, whether it was on my computer or my console, especially after the firmware 1.50 update. So they get really loud as well with a surprising amount of power handling. Now, imaging performance and soundstage is okay. Most IEMs or earbuds don't necessarily have a wide soundstage, which is kind of like a perceived effect, because when you listen to speakers or stuff in real life, you have all these frequencies bouncing around the room. That's why it sounds so wide. And then when you have headphones, the headphones are interacting with your entire ear pinna, which again helps create some sense of space, not as much as a speaker. Then when you get to an earbud, there's no other interaction with the rest of your head. It's only interacting with your ear canal. So don't expect it to sound as wide as a good speaker or headphone system. Having said that, the imaging performance is still great. I think the tuning of this is, once applied with custom EQ for the right game setting, I was playing games like Call of Duty just fine. I don't feel like it was as competitive as some of my better headphones for FPS gaming or a really high quality IEM that's wired, but that's a totally different form factor and price point. If I was just sitting at home and I was trying to play competitively, I'd probably prefer a headphone or headset, just because I usually get better performance from that. But on a wireless earbud, I could play with these for hours, and I have. That's why I've had it for so long, and I still felt really competitive. So they are actually quite capable. Now, both the mobile app and the PC app give you the exact same change and customization options to change how these are set up. The only difference is the PC version is where you would create your own custom EQ to save to the earbuds. Otherwise, everything else is identical. You can change the microphone sensitivity on both and even set side tone. Yes, there is a functional side tone on this, and it's surprisingly good. Because you heard the microphone performance earlier, I think that might have something to do with the Jobber tech, but the side tone's actually better than, again, some other headsets I've used. It's quite loud, it's in real time, and that also opens up the ability to hear your surroundings. Now, in addition to turning ANC or active noise cancellation off, you also have ANC on, of course, and transparency mode. Transparency mode brings the environment into your earbuds. It uses the external microphones to replay that sound back in your head. That's real time as well. I had no weird issues where it felt unnatural. This is really nice because if I want to use these for gaming at night, but I want to hear if my kids are calling me for anything or something's going on in the house, I can put on transparency mode and hear all that. Or if you're traveling and you don't want to be oblivious to your surroundings, it's great for that as well. The only weird thing I noticed is if ANC mode is turned on, you can still enable microphone side tone, which kind of defeats the purpose. So I wouldn't necessarily use them both. Maybe it's a software thing for now that they'll iron out. I'm sure there's some effect of ANC, but it's not going to work the same as having ANC on and your side tone turned off. Now I want to talk about the buttons of these because I love this about them. They're not touch buttons. They're not capacitive touch. They're clicky. You can actually hear the click, which is really awesome. I like this for a couple reasons. One is because it's tactile, you know the command is going through. There's no question about that. And then if you're ever traveling and you're wearing gloves or something that's not able to transmit capacitive touch, well, you can still interact with those too. So that alone is going to be a selling point for people looking for earbuds. The other thing I like is you can customize what the buttons do. Now there are long presses, there are triple presses, as I mentioned earlier, but a single press and a double press on each the left and right bud can be customized individually. So what I did was the left one is a single tap volume down, right is a single tap volume up, double tap on the left to mute my microphone, and double tap on the right to toggle my ANC settings, which goes through all three, off, ANC, and transparency mode. Even if you purchase the Xbox version, there is no way to do any kind of game to chat mix control or interact with Sonar on PC to do game to chat mix control. So maybe if it's possible and SteelSeries is looking to add features, I would love the ability to do that too. Otherwise, if you're doing a game to chat mix, you have to adjust it on the Xbox or PC itself. I told you this review was going to be long, but I really hope this helped give you an understanding of what to expect with these. To me, this doesn't perfectly replace a headset at home, but some people out there might have comfort issues with a headset or a headphone, and you've just been kind of at a loss of what you can do about it. Well, at least this is giving you a viable alternative because it works on every single platform. Really comfortable. The ANC performance is not as good as something like from Apple or Samsung or Sony if you want ANC performance on a plane, but it's usable. It's still good enough. But then you have all these other benefits for gaming. The microphone support's great, onboard parametric EQ, and supporting an Xbox in addition to PC and PlayStation, for example, on a single SKU is super impressive. It's also really nice to travel with just one little set of earbuds if you're bringing gaming stuff with you on the go and you don't want to travel with a large headset. I like the form factor as well. So hopefully you found this review helpful. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at the next video. Thank you so much for the support and being patient on this one because I've seen a lot of comments asking for this. So hopefully this is the information you were looking for. Stay safe and I'll see you next time. Bye.